So we talked about the Seattle Comedy Club a couple weeks ago. And then I heard a few people mention an interview the club owners did with Gnome from the Comedy Cellar, the guy that owns the Comedy Cellar. Apparently, they do a Comedy Cellar podcast. It's Dan Natterman and the Comedy Cellar owner, Gnome. So they had these Seattle Comedy Club owners on, and boy, were these two just deer caught in the headlights.
Yep.
Like this was a disaster for them.
This is them talking about their booking process.
Okay. Oh yeah, but I guess I'll set it up because we didn't talk about it very long. If you don't remember, Jim Florentine, Kurt Metzger, Louis J. Gomez, and Dave Smith had gigs canceled at this club because these owners booked them without realizing who they were and then canceled them.
Well, so what happened?
Is that enough to understand the whole reasoning?
All right. Try to have an open mind.
Okay. Sorry.
Your agent got in contact with me, or Kurt's agent. They sent me an email and they asked if
now Kurt is not one of the Legion of Skank.
He is not.
Yep. And Skank adjacent.
Yes, right. But so, which I didn't know. I didn't know who the Legion of Skanks were. I'd never heard of them. I had known Kurt from Chelsea.
Oh yeah, that's a good point, Craig. These two are comedians, supposedly.
These
never heard of. Yeah, they own the club, but they say they're also comics. Oh. They've never heard of like Skankfest or Legion of Skanks. Big J. They've never heard of Big J. Okerson. That seems surprising if you're claiming you're comedians. You never heard of Kurt Metzger or Jim Florentine?
By the way, them claiming they're comedians doesn't mean they are.
Well, I mean, they own a club that I assume they do stand up at. So
right.
Through their own power, they must do stand up.
Oh, who the Legion of Skanks were. I'd never heard of them. I had known Kurt from Chelsea lately.
I was just going to say either Amy Schumer or...
Yeah, what a bizarre way. That's the worst possible. It's hilarious that Kurt has ties to those people.
I know.
Because it's just such an opposite world.
Right.
I used to love, that kind of pop culture stuff.
You must be hilarious.
And so when I saw a message for Kurt Metzger, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. I Googled him and, he has a Peabody and I'm like,
yeah, he also has a special and a podcast that were on the Gas Digital Network.
Oh my God. She's talking about that's why she's going to book him. He's got a
Peabody. That must mean he's really funny.
Oh God.
Can we pull up while we're listening to this? Can you pull up a list of Peabody winners
in comedy?
No, no, in the world.
All right.
Well, let's hear the rest of this clip. But I'm curious how many would make me laugh of these Peabody winners. But let's hear this broad.
And so, when I was on the phone with his agent, he was like, "Oh well." While I have you, I also have these 3 other guys. And I'm like, hell yeah. And so I got off the phone with their agent feeling like an all-star. I'm like, I just booked 4 headliners. I am.
And you're a relatively small club.
Yes. And I am
How many seats?
Depending on how we set it up, but 150, 175.
Oh, that's not that small. And you're just starting out, relatively new.
We opened in May.
So to have a national act at your club is a feather in your cap.
Big deal.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm a new booker. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And so I was
to me, like Gnome accepted that as an excuse. Pause. Gnome accepted that as an excuse throughout the interview.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, yeah, you're new to this. You don't know what you're doing. I wouldn't open up a comedy club then maybe if you have no idea who to book, like I'm not like, listen, you might not be the greatest business person yet because you don't have any experience. That's perfectly fine. But to say I'm opening a comedy club without any idea of who comedians are, that seems ill-advised. Like, like, hey, I opened up a pizza place. Now I've never tried pizza in my entire life.
Why?
I don't know what it's supposed to taste like.
Why did this person cancel Louis J. Gomez? Let's find out. Oh my God, it was Sunday afternoon. By the way, you want some Peabody winners?
Yeah,
it's
please.
Television shows and stuff like that.
Okay.
Let's see. We need to talk about Cosby. That one.
That sounds hysteric. I know Bill Cosby. He was very funny.
Frontline, the power of big oil.
I'm laughing already. This
Yep.
is good stuff.
Frontline again. Ukraine. Life under Russia's attack.
Okay, good. You know what? Maybe you can see these people headline in Seattle.
Yeah, it's that kind of stuff. Like people that talk like this are big fans. Guns in America, that one.
Excellent. Yeah, no, that sounds like a lot of funny stuff. Guns in America, I'm sure, is a hilarious take on gun control.
The rebellious life of Miss Rosa Parks.
Get to the back, lady.
It's just all the last Peabody Awards, by the way. This isn't like through time. This is just the last one.
Just recently, yeah.
Yep.
Well, it sounds like a hoot. This Peabody. We gotta check into this next year.
I think so. I'm trying to look see. Better Call Saul won.
Well, there you go. I know Colbert won once.
He's
really funny now.
Atlanta won.
Oh, all right. Donald Glover's funny.
Yep. Abbott Elementary.
Okay, it's a comedy technically.
Let's see.
These are all really good stand-ups, though. I guess is my point. Well, Donald Glover actually was, but
the Today Show.
Oh, good.
So
that's her booking process. Now, again, like if you're running your first business and you're saying I don't have a lot of experience in business, that's fine, but you should have some idea. You should have some passion for what the business represents. You know, like if you open a restaurant, you should have some knowledge of food service. If you open a comedy club, have some idea of what comedians are. And you should probably know that the Peabody Award is not geared towards comedy.
Nope. It's, the problems with America. That's what's dealing with.
Let's hear. What did Kurt win a Peabody for?
I'll look that up when this is playing.
Okay.
And so I had them, that was on February, I believe like February 8th. And then I did a little bit more research and realized, like maybe, this might not be the good idea that I thought it was going to be. And
so tell us about the research.
Just, I talked to investors and just people.
Whoa, hold on a second.
You
investors of what? Gas Digital? What do you mean investor? Because you said you did research about these people. You spoke to people that have given you money.
Ugh.
And that's your research. I don't understand. So when I was a kid and I did a book report, research would be me saying hey, Mom, what do you think about Martin Luther King? That would be considered research in this lady's mind.
It was Inside Amy Schumer.
Really? Well, good for him. Yeah. It was a heck of a program.
Yes. All their own material.
Let's hear about this lady's research.
Have been said, and
So look, just to go step by step. So I'm going to say. So
when someone comes to you and they're like, yeah, we want to book our client here. Like, how many Oscars do they have? Shut up.
They ever won a Nobel Prize? That would be really cool.
This is a real upscale place for dick jokes.
Yes.
And then the investors caught wind of it by looking at the calendar, or you reached out to the investors to let them know?
No, I looking at the calendar.
They looked at the calendar, and then they contacted you.
Yes.
And said what?
That this was probably not a good idea. These are not people that you wanted to welcome.
I don't think this lady knows what research is.
This lady's front lawn definitely has that. In this house, Black Lives Matter. Science is real. The ozone is dying, and blah blah blah.
You can tell Craig has a different angle on this.
Well, it's like people are closed-minded and they can't listen to any conversation. That's all I'm saying.
Well, it's crazy to be like, here's my research. Is people emailed me and said, I don't like Kurt Metzger. That's her research. So if you were to do research on me, you would look at the YouTube comments and say I don't even know if this guy's really blind.
I don't know if we focused enough on the first thing she said was he has a Peabody Award.
I think we focused plenty. We looked up a list of Peabody Awards. What do you want me to do?
That is just so insane for a comedy club to be like,
it is.
He's got a Peabody Award. He can come here.
That's hilarious. The hilarious Peabodys. Who hosts that? Carrot Top?
Ugh.
Yeah, and the thing is that it's the situation is not.
This guy's a fucking cuck ass too. He's just like, yes, honey, you're right.
He comes off to me worse than she does. We'll see.
Yeah, because
Craig's hatred of women is seething through.
No. I hate this guy the most because she doesn't know shit. He knows, but he's like, yes, whatever you say.
We'll see.
Investors dictate to us who we can book, but it was a seed that was planted that then
Right.
we went and we started talking to comedians we work with, producers that we work with, folks in the neighborhood to kind of, understand the feeling.
The
and
neighborhood.
Not only are we new club owners, new bar owners, we're young comedians too, right?
This dude is 50 with a gray beard.
Yeah. That's I'm sure Gnome, he's there. He could probably weigh in on this. I'm sure Gnome walks outside and says to just passersby, hey, Louis C.K. is performing here tonight. Is that cool with everybody?
You guys all right with that?
Hey, neighbors. People in the neighborhood. Now, I keep going back to something she said, though. Is like, they're going to get into their philosophy on comedy and everything. But she said, hey, I thought it was really cool that I was able to book 4 headliners. So in her mind, she wanted this to be a successful comedy club with headlining acts coming. And yet when they find out who Louis J. Gomez is, they change their tune. They should talk to Matt Reese. He hates Louis.
I'm stunned Don Lemon's not headlining next weekend.
It's going to be a wacky show. Yeah. Guys, come see Anderson Cooper live.
Rachel Maddow. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Next we have a diverse perspectives.
Oh, look at this. Barry Weiss live in Seattle.
Dude, George Stephanopoulos is going to come on and shame rape victims right from our stage.
It's a laugh and a half here in Seattle.
You can tell Jerry's back. I'm getting way more mad.
Oh, well, you'll love this. Try and try and keep it down here. But the neighborhood that they're in is basically where that Chaz was.
Oh, I knew that immediately. You didn't have to tell me that.
Yeah.
I could just tell.
Yeah.
They're supplying them with food on the other side of the Chaz. That's the
Hey guys, you can't see Jim Florentine, but a mysterious pile of bricks did show up right outside the
cement milkshakes, perhaps.
Much of the email tracks what you've already said, but then there's one part here which says, we truly value the art of comedy and the diverse perspectives it brings to our lives.
Sure.
But it sounds like that's the opposite of what you're saying. You don't want diverse perspectives. You want perspectives that conform to your perspective.
I think that there's a difference between saying I value a perspective and I want someone to come into my business to represent that.
I value a perspective. It's at its greatest value right outside my doors.
I bet this is like the first application that says thoughts on George Floyd and has a blank space underneath you to write.
Oh, this perspective is so valuable that I don't want it. I want anyone else but me to have it. That's how valuable this perspective is. Gnome, by the way, does a great job in this. I encourage anyone that's interested in this subject to go listen to the full podcast. It's from a couple weeks ago. But Gnome does a very good job pushing back on them, as I think you'll hear throughout these clips.
Yeah, I like too. It's like arguably one of the, if not the second most successful comedy club ever. The guy has it right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, I think
the opposite of me.
I could be wrong. I think Gnome is a fairly liberal guy. I could be totally wrong on that. But I think he is.
And I think that's important in comedy club owners.
Yeah, right.
I think that there's a place for all sorts of stand-ups. These guys got rebooked in Tacoma. I think that's fantastic. Those are great clubs.
Shut up.
And they'll do very well, and I'm happy for them.
I mean,
it's not that I don't think they should be able to do comedy. It's just I don't want them to do comedy in my club because it's not a good business decision. It's not.
Well, if it's not a good business decision, then shouldn't every comedy club have that stance? They are all businesses.
No, the best business decision was shedding the light that they did on their club recently.
That's true. But like, so it's a bad, hey, it's just not, it's plain and simple. It's not a good business decision to book these 4. But I hope other comedy clubs book them. I hope comedy clubs that want to fail book these guys. It's just me that wants to be a successful comedy club owner. I'm not going to do it.
You remember what this club was called?
No, I don't.
I want to look up who they have coming up. I'm curious.
You're not going to know the names. Like it's they have I don't know if we have it in one of the clips, but one of the shows that they do
Mhm.
is called Queers to the Front.
Mike, you want to know how unsurprised I am by that?
I'm just saying, it's like that. I don't think you're gonna get, as Gnome tells them, he's like, listen, you want to talk about what's a good business decision? That's a bad business decision.
Yeah,
Like,
Friday night.
I have
night
shows
we're
where it's
gonna
just
show
gay
tickets.
people or just black people or whatever. It should be the funniest comedians.
Yeah, Friday night we're gonna have people come in. We're gonna shut all the lights off, and you just scream at the top of your lungs just to get it out, and then you can leave. That's
We have Rape Victim Tuesdays where you come in and you scream about being raped.
Yeah, exactly. You can come in. We're gonna have a debate on which bathroom you guys can use while you're here next week.
About what the
It's
things I
hard.
said.
It's a hard sell to say I really value diverse perspectives, but not in my club. I mean, wouldn't you have it in your club?
Well, but we do have diverse perspectives. We just don't
From
have.
what to, what's the range?
We have black people that think like us, white people that think like us, gay people that think like us, straight people that think like us.
We have people that are for hormone blockers and people who are really for hormone blockers.
diverse perspectives.
I mean, we have
Like me in
comedians-
my club, we had a night where they had Norman Finkelstein calling Israel a genocidal state. Would you allow that in your club, by the way?
Honestly, I don't.
They're afraid to say yes.
I don't know where we're allowed to stand on that issue.
Exclusively, but no. Yes.
Well, Gnome brings this up. Gnome's Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
And he's obviously talking about like the Israel-Palestine stuff. And he says, like, so you don't allow, right-wingers that the media calls anti-Semitic, but you'll allow left-wingers that are actively being anti-Semitic and
Right.
shitting on Israel. Like that you'll allow.
Right.
So, like I said, Gnome does a very good job in this.
I don't know. That's not sure. You remind me of the Harvard president. And then another night we had some people from the IDF answering questions about defending the IDF. So that's diverse perspectives.
Right.
And we get a lot of flack for that, but we actually do value diverse perspectives, and we try to live that way. As a matter of and I put on perspectives that make my stomach turn because I feel that's my obligation
Right.
to do that. It's only meaningful to say I'm about free speech when I have to sit through speech that really bothers me.
Out of way, Gnome. What Gnome's saying, like, hey, and Gnome brings it up to them. They're talking about, the Legion of Skanks advertise themselves as the most offensive podcast on earth, which they do purposefully, so clubs like this don't book them
Correct.
and not realize what they're doing.
Right.
But Gnome found an old ad that I assume ran in like newspapers or something for a Richard Pryor show, where it was like vulgar, edgy, offensive. That's how Richard Pryor branded himself.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, so by this standard, you wouldn't book Richard Pryor in your club. And they had to be like, I guess you're right. No, we wouldn't. It's like, do you realize what you're saying? Like the greatest, by the way, African-American comedian of all time, you wouldn't allow to work in your club.
Well, they get a free pass. They can do whatever they want.
Right.
These two are going to kneel down and say, we're sorry for the racism that happened.
It was funny because Lewis said after Shane hosted SNL,
Mm-hmm.
he goes, I saw a lot of people saying like, hey, Shane hosted SNL, the official end of cancel culture. And I was like, yeah, my gigs just got canceled because I'm a Nazi, but whatever.
This one is the F word.
Oh, the F slur. I should make that known because they got confused at the beginning when he was like, so you can't say the N word, the F word, that sort of stuff. And Gnome was confused. He was like, you can't say the F word. And they had to clarify, but they talk more about that here.
These people are censoring the comics.
You can't. Yeah, you're not allowed to say slurs on stage.
Ugh.
I more lament the audience that you're dealing with than your reaction to it, because I understand why you might have blinked, but the hunger of that, the blood that audience is after to make sure that nobody shall say or think anything that they don't approve of, and they'll ruin you, even if they know you're an ally. If you, God forbid, would try to feed yourselves by putting on Kurt Metzger or Dave Smith, that disturbs me.
Well, I think that's a mischaracterization. It's not about speech police. It's not about you can't say anything you want. What we're reacting to is statements made at the expense of other people.
What statement?
I mean, the Legion of Skanks. Like if you look at,
they said a bunch of things. I don't have one example because I didn't find any on my own. I listened to my investors. My research was people emailing me saying I don't like these guys, so I don't have any examples. But that's the thing, Lewis. I mean, I'm sorry. Gnome keeps coming back to where it's like, hey, maybe they say crazy shit on their podcast or whatever. Dave is a political comedian. Like Dave Smith's audience is not going there for a Legion of Skanks show. They're going there for Dave Smith. So why did you cancel Dave Smith? Which we'll get to the reveal of why in a little bit, but. This guy has no answers because he didn't find the answers on himself. He's letting other people control him. That's where it's like, I kind of agree with Gnome's point where he's like, I don't blame you guys for panicking. But here's the thing people never learn, is if these guys came on the Comedy Cellar podcast, which by the way, they flew themselves out for, so they found it important to address this. If they went on and were like, why do you think we cancel? Listen to the Legion of Skanks. Lewis is a racist. He screams the N-word for no reason. Like, come on, what do you mean? Why did we cancel them? Like, that would have been funny.
Right.
And those guys would have had fun with that. And they would have, they would have turned it to where they like these guys now. But everything in this world has to be so morose. And it's like, well, I just think this deserves a serious discussion. And there's no place for humor when it comes to subjects like, and it's like, okay, have a little fucking fun with it once in a while, you know?
So I clicked on the schedule that they have. I see in the next 3 months one name I recognize, and that's Eddie Pepitone.
Oh, that's one thing I wanted to say is like, hey guys, Eddie Pepitone, and there was another Katie Boyle. Katie Boyle is a regular guest on the Real Ass podcast, and Eddie Pepitone I've seen multiple years at Skankfest.
Yeah.
So you guys might want to get back on that research train.
This isn't us canceling them. That's helping them not waste their weekend going to this place.
Right, exactly. But what I'm saying is like, you know, be consistent. You're not allowed to have anyone. Jim Florentine did nothing to deserve this.
Nothing.
So you just had him on. You just canceled him because he's associated with these guys in some roundabout way. So that's true of other comedians you're booking. You realize that, right? You know,
maybe they called Florentine to ask him about his past, and he paused so long they thought he hung up, and they just canceled it.
Yeah, and they named Katie Boyle, who's like an Irish female comedian. They were like, oh well, like she's, you know, we think she's a little edgy, but she's also funny. And it's like, yeah, but based on your own words, her association with them makes her uncouth to book.
Are these two married?
No one quite knows that. I heard other podcasts talking about these two also. And it seems like they date, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, this guy is just, you know, he's got a dog leash around his neck. And she's
they could just be business partners, but I'm not sure.
It's, you know, they praise themselves. This is the podcast where you're going to hear the word faggot. You know, this is the podcast where you're going to hear.
Whoa! Gnome gets him on this in a second, by the way. Well, Gnome gets him on this in a second.
This is the podcast where you're going to hear the word faggot. You know, this is the podcast where you're going to hear the N-word, and we don't care.
Is that true, Max? Can you look that up?
Well, and Gnome is correct. They do say those words on there, but they don't advertise themselves as that.
Right.
That's not in any pamphlets on the Legion of Skanks.
Right.
Hey, we say the N-word. Come watch us.
I think the F word that this comedy club doesn't like is fun. Gathering.
It's very interesting that he's like, hey, you know, in no context is that right? Meanwhile, he just spit it out, which Gnome picks up.
Depends how they use it, right?
I don't think so.
Well, you just used it.
I used it as an example.
Fuck Earth.
I used it. Oh, wait a second.
See, this guy's all for the Legion of Skanks. This woman is just dragging him down.
No, I actually disagree. I think if you watch the full interview, I think the woman comes off better because at least she keeps saying, I don't know what I'm doing. I never should have booked them, blah, blah, blah. Where he's kind of the one doubling down on like, a lot of what they represent is very bad. I think he comes off worse than her in the interview.
Yeah.
You use it in discussing it. You use. I mean, did you call somebody? I mean,
But that wasn't a joke, though, and it wasn't an attempt to make it.
It wasn't a joke. I was just.
It wasn't a joke. I was
saying it.
really using hate speech.
There was no joke involved. I was just saying it, and I wasn't. I said the long version, which is the one that sounds worse.
Hey, there was no. The thing about the Legion of Skanks is they'll say it and have no hate in their heart. I spit it out into a microphone just because. I had no reason to do it.
You'll say it to Milo Yiannopoulos' face and have a laugh.
Joke.
You got me. I did say it. Yes.
You're talking about fuck earlier.
you use it in discussing it. You use. I mean, did you call somebody? I mean,
But that wasn't a joke, though, and it wasn't an attempt to make a joke.
No, it was just a
All
real
this is one of
statement.
the most offensive podcasts on earth. I mean, I read somewhere that there was a quote, and it's something that
I read somewhere there was a quote once of a paragraph of a biography that said that they once thought about saying it and they might have it in something that says something. Shut the fuck up.
They have a segment like about is someone justified in using the N-word?
Yeah, well, that's the thing is like, Lewis says the core values of the show are rape, racism, and retardation.
Two Jews and a Puerto Rican is the show.
Well, that's very true. Yeah, people call them Nazis, and they're 2 Jews and a Puerto Rican.
Yeah.
But the greater point is they're speaking to their own detriment here, because they're like, look, it's everywhere. It's in the bio of the show that they're offensive, and I thought you said you did your research on them. What happened to all that research you did?
Tiger Lily in the chat says they're as enraging as Stuttering John. I think they're way worse.
Stuttering John, at least you can have a laugh at. These people are so goddamn serious.
Yeah.
they actively market is that we are outrageous. We are offensive.
Why'd you book them if they actively market it?
Because they didn't.
That's what I don't get. That's
they
the part I don't get.
Email from some turquoise-haired idiot with a nose ring, being like, you shouldn't have them. We got one last clip from these guys.
This is
All or None.
I think they would be good on the dais with Joe Matarese. That's what I say. Because I think we're about to learn something about the gigs that were canceled.
CJ Spags, $10. Love the show, but only thing I don't understand is how is Louis J. Gomez racist? His father was a black Puerto Rican.
Because people are dumb, and Louis will say he's racist, so they're like, he must be racist. But they don't realize he's fucking around. He's mixed race.
Yes.
That's what's so crazy about it.
And he's kissed guys on stage, so he can say a whole lot of words.
Yeah, right. He sucked Bobby Kelly's dick.
He kissed our very own Chef Louis 3 times in one night.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
That's on video.
Yeah.
Those comics have their own viewpoints, and they're completely free to express them. Where I draw the line is when you start disrespecting or denigrating someone else's existence.
but did they?
The comics who've done the comics I just listed?
I think you're drawing the line.
Sure, probably, unless you guys give me a follow-up about it. Definitely they did.
This guy's such a phony. He better not say F word from here on out. He better just say the full word the rest of this show. He stepped in it.
But this is like, Gnome, they're like, hey, you can't denigrate other people. You can't say this. You can't say that. And Gnome keeps asking him, did they do that, though? And they're like, blah, 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 blah.
This guy would have Louis J. Gomez arrested in the middle of his set.
Yeah, well, you know what's very interesting? He would have Louis J. Gomez arrested, and Louis J. Gomez would have them on his show.
Right.
I think that tells you everything you need to know about all the people involved here.
Right.
Meaning that like Jim Florentine denigrates people's existence. And I'm just saying, it's not to my knowledge, he wouldn't and hasn't.
I'm not saying that he does that. I'm saying that we're talking about the philosophy of the club. We're talking about, what.
I don't know if you know this, Gnome, but he has a special needs puppet. And
20 years ago, he was a retarded puppet. Don't you know that? No.
Maybe this guy was just on Crank Anchors. He was like a call victim.
It'd be great if it was solely We're gonna learn there's one name. It'd be great if it was just Jim Florentine. They're like, listen, we like the other guys. but I'm a fan of ketchup, and I don't think it is childish.
What you're characterizing as, stifling someone's First Amendment rights, telling them they can't say something. What we're saying is you can't ridicule people from our stage. I'm not saying that's what Jim Florentine's going to do.
Right, but Jim Florentine's the guy you won't let play there. So you are saying that's what he's going to do,
right?
Aren't you?
It's a great point.
The podcast and the group, and I know
the podcast. Two of the guys are not on the podcast. Stop saying the podcast. Kurt Metzger, the last time I remember Kurt Metzger being on Legion of Skanks, I'm sure he's been on other times. Mm-hmm. The last time I remember him being on, Louis J. Gomez physically assaulted him. So I wouldn't say Kurt is one of the Legion of Skanks. I don't remember Jim Florentine. I'm sure Jim's been on also.
Probably.
I listened to a lot of episodes. I don't remember the last time Florentine was on there.
Either.
Yeah. I'm sure he's been on, but he has not been on enough that I would consider him one of the Legion of Skanks. So stop bringing up the podcast.
Is that these guys all came to us from one manager. Yep. They were all booked at the same time. It's not like
he just needs to just come out and say it's Dave Smith's fault for being a political comic.
It's interesting. Well, maybe we'll both have our theories then, but let this play out.
We could go and say, we don't want this guy. We don't want this guy. We want this guy.
So who's the guy you really didn't want? Who's the one that had to go?
It was Jim.
Jim Florentine?
Yeah, we're kidding. No, it's not Jim. I mean, so yeah, I mean, it's, part of that is just the reality of canceling multiple acts with a management that we just assumed.
So there's one act there.
You just assumed.
I don't want you to say who it is because obviously you don't want whoever their followers are. Just, I get it.
I mean, it's going to
but obviously what you're implying is that it was all or nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And within that bouquet of comedians, one of them was more than you could risk.
Mm-hmm.
So you think that's Dave?
Yeah.
Interesting. I assumed Louis.
Definitely Dave.
Well, Louis, think about this though. Louis is much harsher.
Yeah, but
his personality is harsher.
Dave's up there going, anyone who's in the Chaz is retarded.
And that's a good point. Yeah, maybe it's Dave.
Definitely.
But clearly it's one of those two.
Yes.
So it's weird that you couldn't just book Jim Florentine,
It's definitely Dave. I think it's definitely him. He's on part of the problem. He's exploding and he hates liberals.
And he's been on Rogan a bunch.
Yeah, they're like, Rogan? Ew.
Yeah.
That guy had Bernie Sanders? Ew.
He's had like RFK Jr. and Vivek Ramaswamy and these people on. So yeah, maybe it is that makes sense. My mind went right to Louis just because they talk about like, oh, you can't say these slurs. And Louis, even though Dave in his special says the dreaded F word.
Yeah, but if they find out that Louis is like a black Puerto Rican, they're just going to kiss his feet and apologize for existing as white.
Whatever you want, sir. Have our club.
You can have it as reparations, Louis. That would be amazing. That would be amazing.
Yeah, so go watch it, and they talk about like they got bomb threats and all this stuff. Which, by the way, people are assholes that do that. And Noam actually did something very interesting. He played a couple voicemails that they got, and the people leaving them voicemails are assholes. Mm-hmm. Like it's threats and all that kind of stuff. So that part I do get, and I get why a business would panic and all that kind of stuff. But their logic, I say this about apologies too. And listen, maybe if I'm in that situation where I feel like my career's on the line, like when I thought Portnoy was going to fire me, I was like, "Sorry, Dave." Yeah. So I get it, like thinking you're going to lose everything, but I don't understand why everything always has to be melodramatic. Where it's like if they came on this podcast, and again they're not in that frame of mind, maybe next time they will be. Maybe this is a learning experience. I doubt it. But if they came on and were like, "What do you mean? Why would we get losers are racist? What do you mean?" Like if they joked about it. Then everyone would have been like, okay, whatever. They're just different perspectives. Why would they have Louis there, But the tone of it where it's like, we respect their opinions. We value their opinions. We just don't want them anywhere near the business that we own. And Gnome makes a lot of good points because they kept saying like, "Hey, we're just a
Yeah.
small comedy club," and Gnome is like, "Yeah, well, there were a lot of small diners that wouldn't let black people in the 50s, you know."
No.
He made a good point.
Yeah.
It's
Dang
like
Lizard,
they didn't think they were making national news, but
oh
did.
boy did they.
yeah.
Dang Lizard, €5. He's right. Instead of making a joke, let's seriously discuss burning Kreggers on a bundle of sticks.
Yes. That's a good point.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I'm convinced that's about Dave.
Him being more political does make sense. Lewis is like dirtier.
For
so
sure.
My mind went there. But.
For sure, but just like I said, as soon as the first clip we played, just the woman like right off the bat, I was like, oh, she hates Dave Smith.
And how shitty is it? And listen, Florentine got other gigs out of this, so it worked out for him.
Yep.
But how shitty is it to make the joke like, oh, it was Jim Florentine. Ha ha ha. Obviously not. Well, you canceled the guy.
So it was.
Luckily he was able to replace that money, but you took money out of his pocket.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, either it was Jim or why the fuck did you cancel him? Did the manager take some moral stance? Like, it's all of them or none of them?
Right.
Because that'd be a good manager to have. It's like, hey, I represent Matt Rife and fucking Tom Myers, and they both get booked everywhere.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Carl Heberger, $5.
I know that guy.
Is that actually him? When Dave Smith was in Rochester, Antifa protested outside of the club.
Yes, that's happened a couple times with Dave. So that does make sense. I didn't think of that angle. That does make more sense.
Well, there'll be unlimited protests because they all live right outside of this club.
It just Lewis says the N-word so often that I thought it had to be him. But,
oh no, I'm definitely Dave.
Yeah, that makes sense. You've convinced me.
Especially when they're like, it's this one guy, and they know his following is insane now.
Yeah.
So they would get crushed.
Yeah, but the Gomites are a terrifying bunch. I wouldn't want to cross them either.
That's true. That's very true.